Roman Reigns just blamed JUSO for his own attack. Roman Reigns broke his silence on SmackDown last night about the brutal mystery attacker who hospitalized JUSO 3 weeks ago, and instead of showing concern for his cousin or promising to find who's responsible, Roman delivered the most cold-blooded, most narcissistic response imaginable. He essentially blamed JUI for getting attacked because G wasn't strong enough and made himself a target by separating from the bloodlines. Protection. Roman turned his own cousin's victimization into a lecture about loyalty and weakness instead of doing what family is supposed to do: support each other unconditionally. This wasn't just Roman being a heel or playing his tribal chief character. This was character assassination of someone who's been loyal to Roman for years, who took countless beatings as Roman's enforcer, who sacrificed his own career opportunities to make Roman look strong. And Roman's response to G nearly being hospitalized by a mystery attacker? This wouldn't have happened if you'd stayed in line. That's not tough love, that's abuse disguised as leadership. But here's what makes this absolutely devastating: GUSO is still in the hospital recovering from injuries sustained in the attack. He can't even respond to Roman's victim blaming because he's dealing with legitimate medical issues. Roman knew this and still chose to kick G while he's down, using a national platform to further damage someone who can't defend himself. That's not the tribal chief, that's a coward who only feels powerful when attacking people who can't fight back. Hit that like button and subscribe to Wrestling News CC, because I'm about to break down exactly what Roman said that has the entire wrestling world disgusted, why this proves Roman's character has crossed from compelling heel into irredeemable villain territory, and why this might be the moment that finally destroys whatever goodwill Roman has left with fans who've tolerated his toxic behavior for years. Let me walk you through Roman's devastating promo, because every word made the situation worse. SmackDown opens with Paul Heyman in the ring, presumably to update fans on GUSO's condition and maybe provide information about the ongoing investigation into who attacked him. That's what a normal authority figure or family member would do. Instead, Heyman introduces Roman Reigns. Roman walks out with that arrogant swagger, completely unbothered by the fact that his cousin is in the hospital. He doesn't look concerned. He doesn't look angry on G's behalf. He looks annoyed, like G's attack is an inconvenience to him rather than a family tragedy. Roman takes the microphone. Everyone wants to know what the tribal chief has to say about what happened to GUSO. Everyone's waiting for me to express concern or promise revenge. But here's what I'm actually going to say: G brought this on himself. The crowd boos immediately. This isn't the response anyone expected. Family is supposed to support family, especially when they're victimized by violence. When G decided he didn't need the bloodline anymore, Roman continues, his voice dripping with condescension, when he thought he could make it on his own without my protection and guidance, he made himself vulnerable. He painted a target on his back by showing the entire WWE roster that he was weak, that he was alone, that he didn't have the tribal chief watching his back. He pauses, letting that victim blaming sink in. So what happened to G? That's the consequence of his choices. That's what happens when you turn your back on family and think you can survive in this business without the strongest faction behind you. The crowd is booing heavily now. Even people who normally cheer Roman as a compelling heel character are recognizing this crossed a line. You don't blame victims for being attacked. That's not heel work, that's genuinely toxic behavior that WWE shouldn't be presenting as entertainment. And before anyone asks, Roman adds, "No, I'm not going to investigate who attacked G. No, I'm not going to get revenge on his behalf. Because G chose to reject my protection. He chose to leave the bloodline. So now he gets to deal with the consequences of that choice without my help." He wanted independence? He got it. Along with a trip to the hospital. Roman actually smirks when mentioning G's hospitalization. That visual of Roman finding amusement in his cousin's pain is one of the most disturbing images WWE has presented in years. But here's what I will say: Roman's tone shifts to mock sympathy that's even worse than his outright hostility. If G wants my help, if he wants the tribal chief's protection, if he wants to make sure this never happens again, all he has to do is come back to the bloodline, acknowledge me, apologize for his disrespect, and submit to my leadership like he should have done in the first place. Then Roman delivers the kill shot. Otherwise, what happened to G is just the beginning. Because the WWE roster has learned that anyone who leaves the bloodline is fair game. They're vulnerable. They're targets. And I'm not lifting a finger to protect people who rejected me. Roman drops the mic and leaves to mixed boos and stunned silence. He just admitted on camera that he's willing to let his own cousin continue being attacked because G dared to seek independence from Roman's control. Here's why Roman's response is absolutely devastating on multiple levels. First, it's textbook abuser logic. Look what you made me do. This is your fault for not obeying me. You wouldn't have gotten hurt if you just stayed under my control. Those are the exact patterns of abusive relationships that WWE is now glorifying through Roman's character. Second, it positions Roman as someone who values control over family. He'd rather let G remain vulnerable to attacks than accept that G has the right to independence. That's not leadership, that's tyranny disguised as tradition. Third, it makes Roman look weak rather than strong. A truly powerful leader would protect family members regardless of whether they're currently loyal. The fact that Roman can only protect people who submit to him proves his power is fragile and requires constant affirmation through others' submission. Fourth, it destroys any remaining sympathy for Roman's character. For years, WWE has tried to present Roman as a complex heel, someone whose methods are questionable but whose underlying motivations, protecting family, are understandable. But victim blaming your hospitalized cousin destroys that complexity. There's no moral ambiguity here. Roman is just cruel. The locker room reaction is reportedly disgusted. Multiple wrestlers have expressed that Roman's promo crossed lines that shouldn't be crossed even in heel characters. There's concern that WWE is normalizing abusive relationship dynamics by presenting Roman's victim blaming as just good heel work instead of recognizing it as genuinely toxic behavior. GUSO himself hasn't been able to respond because he's still recovering from legitimate injuries sustained in the attack, though sources say they're not as serious as initially feared and G should return within 2 to 3 weeks. But people close to G report he's furious with both the attack itself and Roman's response, which has hardened G's resolve to never return to the bloodline regardless of threats or pressure. Here's what makes this situation even more concerning. Roman's promo essentially encouraged more attacks on G by announcing to the entire roster that anyone who goes after G won't face consequences from the bloodline. That's not just refusing to help, that's actively making G's situation more dangerous. If someone attacks G again after Roman's statement, Roman bears moral responsibility for enabling it through his public declaration that he won't protect G. That crosses from storyline villainy into something genuinely disturbing that WWE probably hasn't fully thought through. Here's what should happen as response to Roman's toxicity. Other babyfaces on the roster should step up and offer to protect G since his own family won't. That creates new alliances and shows that chosen family, people who actually care, matters more than blood family that's conditional on submission. When G returns, he should have a powerful promo addressing Roman's victim blaming and making it clear that Roman's abuse will never make G come crawling back. That gives G agency and character strength instead of making him a perpetual victim. And ultimately, Roman should face consequences for his cruelty. Not just losing matches but losing respect. Having other wrestlers, even heels, tell him his treatment of G was disgusting and cross lines that even villains shouldn't cross. My prediction? The mystery attacker is revealed to be someone from the bloodline, possibly acting on Roman's unspoken orders or at minimum doing what they think Roman wants even if he didn't explicitly command it. That would make Roman complicit in the attack while maintaining plausible deniability. When this is revealed, it creates the ultimate confrontation, G versus Roman, with the stakes being whether G can expose Roman as not just a bad leader but an actual monster who would hurt his own family to maintain control. The fan reaction has been overwhelmingly negative toward Roman. Even his most loyal fans are expressing disappointment with the victim-blaming promo. Social media is flooded with "Roman crossed the line, this isn't heel work, it's just gross, G deserves better," and calls for WWE to recognize how toxic this portrayal is. Wrestling media outlets are publishing think pieces about whether WWE has a responsibility to not normalize abusive relationship dynamics even in fictional storylines. The backlash is real and significant. Drop your thoughts. Did Roman's victim blaming cross the line? Should WWE be glorifying this kind of toxic behavior? And what should happen when G returns and confronts Roman? Comments below. This is Wrestling News CC, calling out toxic storytelling even when it involves WWE's top stars. Subscribe for continued coverage of this disturbing storyline and whether WWE recognizes the damage they're doing. Roman Reigns blamed GUSO for being attacked. He offered protection only if G submits to his control again, and he essentially gave the entire roster permission to target G without consequences. This isn't compelling heel work, this is WWE normalizing abusive relationship dynamics where victims are blamed for their own victimization. And it's disgusting. GUSO deserves better. Wrestling fans deserve better. And Roman Reigns' character has officially crossed from complex villain into irredeemable monster. This is the line.